Welcome. This is a conversation between three artist educators, all part of Artes, University of the Arts in the Netherlands. And this morning, we're going to talk a little bit about our experiences of being an artist and maneuvering or finding our way through conflict and through war, as it may be, as the case is today in the Ukraine. As part of a dialogue which is going to add to a series of events which are taking place in the Netherlands over the next few weeks, called Artists for Ukraine, where artists are putting their work together in different parts of the country to try and sell it, to raise funds for Ukrainian refugees. So I'm delighted to be here this morning to welcome Amjad and also to welcome Paulina. Paulina is a prospective student on the International Masters Artist Educator program. And Amjad is currently in Belfast, and he's on the Bachelor in Theatre Education here at Artes as well. So yeah, thanks for joining us this morning. It's going to be a very open conversation, an open dialogue. The finished recording will be given to Studium General, our research disseminator, you could say, at Artes, and they're going to use it and present it, hopefully into the world in some way, and people will maybe find it interesting. I imagine we'll go for around 30 to 45 minutes, and we'll just go rhizomatic. Let's just talk about our experiences. I've kind of given this a subtitle of what do I call it? Soft survivors in a hard world. And the reason why I've drawn attention to the soft is because we are artist educators and we're involved in educational work. And there's a ongoing debate about what skills are needed for the 21st century. And we're put in that, the arts and cultural activity are put in that space of soft skills. And in some way, that's a derogatory term. People look at that as something which is less than hard skills being mathematics, science, technologies, and things of that nature. And then there's the arts, this sort of soft thing. Well, we really want to change that paradigm and say, well, we need soft, because look at where the hard skills have got us, war after war after war. And maybe it's time for soft skills to take center stage and to welcome and support and actually cherish the soft in our world today. So soft survivors, and in a hard world, we are, the three of us, in some way are survivors of conflict, of war. And I'm going to ask you now to introduce yourselves. Maybe start with Paulina.
Hi, I'm Paulina Sinetkina. I'm an artist. I come from Russia, and I'm a tuberculosis survivor. And all my art work is devoted to fighting stigma of the social diseases and such as tuberculosis or HIV or mental disorders. So is it okay if it's short, or I have to go on?
Yeah, you'll be able to introduce yourself a lot more, obviously, through our conversation, Paulina. Thank you.
Yeah.
Amjad?
I'm Jadwer. I'm from Syria. I studied there theater science. Then I had to feed the country to Turkey. I worked there in documentaries involved in the Syrian revolution, war. I don't know what we can call it nowadays. And then I came to the Netherlands and I started to do the program Theater and Education, and I'm now in my graduation year. So that's for now. Maybe the conversation will bring more.
I'm sure it will. And I'll finish the introduction saying my name is John Johnston. I'm the head of the International Masters Artist Educator at Artes. And that's a program which tries to bring artists to education and look at issues-based art education. So very much around issues of conflict transformation, social justice, human rights, these sort of things underpin what we do here. But and that comes from my background. I'm originally from Belfast in Northern Ireland, and I'm an older fella, as you can see, but I grew up in the late 1960s, 1970s and 1980s, probably in the worst time of the conflict in Northern Ireland, and a conflict which claimed the lives of almost 4,000 people over a period of 40 years. I believe the conflict is still going on. I think we are in a conflict resolution or transformation moment. There's a lot of work to be done. These things just don't end with peace agreements. I witnessed a lot of things growing up which impacted on me, and impacted on my art and brought me to the point where actually, I feel so committed to art and so committed to education. It's two powerful forces that I constructed this master's degree here in the Netherlands for people like Paulina, for people like Amjad as well, to come along, join us on creating, I think, a movement, really more than a education, more than even a master's degree or a bachelor's degree, but a movement which can actually transform how people live and how they see the other. And that word transform is crucial. And that's the sort of things we're going to sort of talk about in the next half hour. So what happened to us in actual fact during these really oppressed times? How did we survive? How did we come through that? And how did art actually enable us to come out of it in the way that we have done? And also looking at art as something which has actually fed us and give us the food to make these brave steps, I think, toward being an educator. So yeah, well, Paulina, you've just arrived in the Netherlands, I believe. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your journey, not necessarily just to get to the Netherlands, but also your journey to art and your journey through, which we can say for clearly now, is a very oppressive regime, and it's a Putin regime. It isn't Russia; it's a Putin regime we're talking about that you've had to live through, and of course, you've escaped it. You've actually got yourself out of that country, and now you're here in the Netherlands. You're very welcome. So maybe a little bit about how you got here.
Well, if I start from the beginning, I survived. Yeah, I survived tuberculosis in 2015, and I was 25 back then. It is so I actually faced my own war for survival. I was fighting for my survival with the disease, and the disease appeared to be super stigmatized. But as a 25 years old girl, I wouldn't know anything about it simply because nobody's talking about it, and especially in Russia or anywhere in the world. I believe that stigma is a very international issue. I spent around 7 months isolated in a hospital, treating tuberculosis. And there in the hospital, of course, I was introduced to the world. I've seen, because I'm an artist all my life, and I think I was surrounded by artists, by like-minded people. But when you appear in a hospital, you meet all kind of people. You meet the world, and in the world, people are very different. So this is how I think you grow up as a person. And I think I grew up as an artist as well, because before this disease, I didn't know how to use my skills. What am I going to do in my life as an artist? But there in the hospital, I realized that my skills are my gift, and I have to use it as a weapon to fight stigma.
Interesting what you're saying, Paulina, in regards to maybe Amjad, you can talk a little bit about this as well. It's about this personal experience and how that personal experience drives us forward and makes us make these decisions. And the other thing which is interesting about what you say is that it isn't something that you find in the studio and per se working with a specific piece of art. It's something you find in the world. So that's stepping out into the world. In your case, it was forced to have to go into hospital. You encountered various different sort of reasons to be an artist, and I think maybe that's something we can talk about as well. About it gives meaning. Meaning making is so important for us as human beings. What does our life mean, for example? But these experiences, personal experiences, are very important and give us the sort of fuel, I would say, to make our work. Yeah.
But this experience just made me an activist and fight for the human rights, fight for the rights of patients who go through tuberculosis in the world. And that's how I ended up with lots of conferences around the world and raising the voice of people who fight tuberculosis. And of course, I was facing a lot of things while being Russian and living in Russia, being an activist. I was always welcomed in the conferences in the Western countries, because I think it's important to talk about tuberculosis in the world, because it is a world issue. It's not only about Russia. It's not only about Indonesia or anywhere in the world. So it is important that we raise up the problems and talk about them. But I faced many times that in Russia I was just asked to stop talking about it. It has to do something with our mentality, that people want to seem good and seem successful, seem for the rest of the world.
There is no problems. Everything goes along smoothly, and yeah, it's an interesting way of seeing a country that every country has problems, of course, but what you've just touched on is this global problems today are global, and what we're seeing happening in Ukraine at this moment in time is of course at the moment you could say it's localized, but we know it's global because the world is frightened, obviously, but also the fact that Ukraine itself, you know, as a country, supplies so much grain for the world that we're now going to see a shortage of grain in some North African countries and particularly Arab countries, and that could destabilize some of those countries as well. So everything has a knock-on effect. It's this sort of butterfly wings thing. So I'm going right back to your experience of being ill and being in that hospital and how that has taken you on this journey. And now you're in this moment in time as a Russian, as somebody who's seen as an activist, and having to leave the country and to try and make some sort of sense out of that journey as well. I know, Amjad, we've talked a little bit before about your journey out of Syria, and maybe you could say a little bit about that.
Yeah, when the revolution started, it was like no option for me to stay. I should take a side. Before it was very complicated. Now I think there are a lot of sides that you can take. So I'm not really involved directly in the conflict there, but yeah, I was like I stayed at the revolution side, and I was arrested. Like not a big deal comparing with what happened. It's like 1 week, and after that it was. No option for someone who wants to make art, free art, to stay in Syria. So I went to Turkey. There I could mostly work like story consultant for many documentaries, and there I have faced something else. I faced a big problem working with the NGOs, with the European NGOs, because they have a certain narrative that they want to promote, and it wasn't really about the people. It wasn't really about me as an artist. So this is the first thing I was facing there. So I had also to make a choice. Yeah, I will be now just someone who works for an NGO, or I will keep my journey as an artist. And at the same time, it was like promoting the fact that I am a war victim. And this is something I don't like. I'm not very comfortable with two words, activist and war, and victim, because this put me in a certain. It's labeling me. It's putting me in a certain category. While I think I'm more than that, or I want to be more than that. I want to be more than victim. I'm not an example about victim. I'm not a victim myself. I don't feel myself as a victim. I didn't suffer, like other people suffered in Syria and still suffering in Syria. So I want to take another role, and the role I want to take now, that's why I'm doing this program, is I want to be an educator. I want to be an artistic educator. I don't want to be in a safe space. I want to teach people how to claim their own safe spaces. So I don't believe that there's a safe space that you can decide yourself and just give it to other people. You can give them the tools. So I think, art education is a good tool to give to other people to create their own safe spaces and to claim their own safe spaces. And yeah, it's just funny that when I came to the Netherlands, I've been asked to like to play the role of a refugee, or like to make a better image to refugee, but it's not my conflict. This is the conflict here between the people that they have to solve it themselves. My conflict is different, and the role I want to play here is also different. I really wanted to make another kind of art that doesn't divide people to like victim and yeah, I'm a survivor. This is a reality. I'm a refugee. This is a reality. I accept it, but I can't stay in this role of victim. So from the first year in theater education, I started to bring this in. It was like my end year project. It was about the struggle of a filmmaker inside an NGO here in Europe. So yeah, actually, this is the thing I want to. I want to make it clear that if you choose to be a victim, you will you'll stay a victim. Yeah. And it's not something that you want to place. It's not a good label to label people with.
I think also it's an easy label to adopt, isn't it? Because
yeah,
I remember when you just said something there about what NGOs expect. You know, they look at you and they go, I'm watching the every day the endless newsreel coming out, particularly the last few weeks, coming out of the border between Poland and Moldova, and you're seeing the terrible stories. I mean, there's no getting away from it, you know. But we did see these stories in Syria as well. And I've seen them in other parts of the world. Actually, I've seen it in my home city of Belfast in the early 1970s. But they're sort of like, one thing which is making me a little bit uncomfortable at the moment is this very, you know, willingness and this sort of like massive outpouring of support, which is right and proper for Ukrainian refugees. But we didn't see similar sort of levels of support and welcoming for people coming out of Syria or coming out of Libya or coming out of Algeria, whatever the case may be. So there's something
not that quick. It wasn't that quick. It was like now it's very quickly, but at the same time I have questions about this. Yeah, so
do you think that's been learned? Do you think that maybe Europe has learned, you know, from the previous crises from Syria, that, you know, it wasn't that long ago we were looking at Hungarian borders completely blocking off, and Russia, I think, was pushing, you know, refugees from Syria toward the west, you know, in a way, and they were blocking off the borders. So that wasn't that long. I think maybe even just last summer. So something's changed. There's something happened here, and there's something to me which is a little bit uncomfortable with that, you know, a little bit uncomfortable with that. But I'd say from my experiences, you know, I remember in Belfast in the 1980s, particularly camera crews coming from different parts of Europe, news companies, CNN, all turning up, and there was no riot. You know, there was nothing happening, but they were in the area waiting on it to happen. And there was one actual German film crew who actually, you know, had basically orchestrated a riot. They had got petrol bombs, they got various different things, and they were instigating a bit of a sort of tension between the two communities. And of course, young kids come on the street and they see a petrol bomb, you know, they're going to get involved in that. So they were actually creating a narrative. And that's a worrying thing, I think, as well, you know, and even how we're looking at the news today, it's clear what's going on. I mean, it's dreadful, no question about that. But how do we as artists then position ourselves in that story? I think what I'm hearing from both of you is a similar sort of thing, the choices that we make. And the choices are hard choices. So we choose not to be propagandized because that can happen very easy. And we choose not to sort of take the role of the victim because that can happen very easy. So we have to find some ground. And Paulina, I'm interested to know, like, you've come out of this activist sort of space in Russia, and now you're confronted with what's going on in regards to conflict and war, and how you can see that maybe that identity of the activist translating now. Do you see a translation into a different sort of narrative?
I want to make a point. For me at this moment, it's very hard to build narrative I think, because it just happened. I'm still very shaking because of the things that happened, and I, as many Russians who fled at this moment, who are like opposite of propaganda side, they see what is happening, and they have all this mixture of feelings of guilt, of shame, of anger, despair, and when you are so much emotional, you cannot think. So I'm, it is now that I fled and I'm in the Netherlands, I can breathe finally and I can eat finally, but I still think that I'm super privileged that I could do it, because many Russians they're there, and I know my family, my friends, they're there, and it's a weird situation when there is no bombing in Russia. And I cannot. I think that I don't allow myself to victimize myself now, because I'm not a victim here. I have to step into the role of take some actions, but at this very moment it's super hard because all the emotions are here. They are now at this moment. So it is something like I try to forgive myself at this moment that, Paulina, please, now you just have to calm down, and then we will talk about action, because action has to happen. And for 6 years I've been an activist in the healthcare zone, and I was always thinking that tuberculosis is more than politics. It is wider. The problem is wider. So I was giving away lots of interviews every time. I was talking everywhere where I would be invited, because I didn't think what is it kind of place, and what is the media is taking interview from me, because I was thinking that it is just important to talk about it, and doesn't matter if it is a government media channel, doesn't matter. It is important that people see me and they see that I'm not afraid to speak out about my experience. I wanted to influence as much people as possible. But tomorrow is the World Tuberculosis Day. It's a very important event every year for us as TB survivors, as for activists, and there are always interviews happening. And yesterday I was invited for an interview from some government channel who supports Putin and propaganda, and I rejected it, and I felt such a big relief that I finally did something. I thought, my God, this is a super small thing to do, and it's just for me, but it felt so big. And I think this is how, with the small steps, we can finally do some actions, but only when we can breathe.
And I think that that's an important point, because it talks to the idea that we need to create these spaces, as you said, Anya, for ourselves. We create these spaces and we say, okay, I need time to reflect. How can I make sense out of this? I can honestly tell it to you, as I'm a bit older and a bit longer in the tooth, I still haven't made complete sense out of Northern Ireland. It doesn't, and I think if you do make sense out of it, there's something maybe wrong with your head, because what sense is there in killing someone else simply because they've got a different colored skin, they've got a different religion, they speak a different language, and they've got different customs? There is no sense in that. So I think to try and actually make sense out of it is probably a waste of energy and a false economy, and I think that artists and how we work with art, particularly, maybe a lot of it is about us trying to make sense out of the world that we're living in. I know for me in Northern Ireland, I can honestly say, and it maybe sounds all romantic and a bit crazy, but I know that there was 2 things that saved my life in Northern Ireland. One, well, I had a great family, but with my mum and dad and my brother and sister, but one of them was football, would you believe? Because I loved football and I played football night and day. And the other one was art. And football gave me the physical, aspect, to be able to release that physical energy or whatever. But art gave me an intellectual. It helped me release the thoughts. I'm not saying it was all about expression. It was helping me find a voice, I think, to the situation that I was in and trying to understand it in some way. And I didn't know that until I was in my mid-20s and maybe even in my 30s at art school. I was asking myself, why am I doing art? Am I here to make pictures and paint trees and landscapes? And I was trying to find the meaning, and I found it by reflecting on the life that I had lived. And it took me a long time, and you know, I'm still working on it. It's a work in progress. I don't know how you feel, Amjad. I know you were saying stuff about actually how your work has changed.
Yeah, it's kind of the same. I'm doing more like collective. Theater is more collective than sitting in a studio and drawing and making art inside a studio. But when I came to the Netherlands, I started to learn how to make electronic music, and now I'm doing this for 5 years. So it was, I think, the balance between your sitting in your own studio, making your own art, then going outside and meeting people, the interaction between your own loneliness and being with a group is what makes me more relieved. Like I have this time for myself, but then I have time to share what I do with other people. So I think going inside your own loneliness and then going in the collective work frame is something that helps me make balance with myself and helps me also feeling like kind of satisfaction. Like I'm not doing this for myself. I can share this with other people. I can make kind of change. So I have I came from theater science, so it's like theory. So I'm used to stay with my own and just to read and to analyze texts and something like this. But here with this theater and education helped me more sharing those ideas. And I started to claim my own space. So this is something that's why I'm focusing on safe spaces, because I would say something, maybe it's very critical for artists, but artists offers a safe space, or this is what artists as school tries to do. I think sometimes it was something negative for me. It was not something inspiring for me. And the moment I started to stop using this safe space, stop talking about easy topics like I'm a refugee, I have the right to be here. This is something that I think we don't have to talk about this. Not in an art school. I don't have to talk about discrimination in an art school. I have to get more tools and get more inspiration to take those thoughts outside, to go in a village, a very conservative village, and talk about this. But if I stayed in this safe bubble, then I wouldn't be able to do something, to say any word in a conservative village in the Netherlands. So it was something for me. I got the realization that I must do something else. I must claim another space than the space that an art school offers me.
Maybe the art school offers that space where you can kind of get to breathe and reflect, collect your thoughts, and that safety valve needs to be present for that. But I agree. I mean, you said something a couple of days ago. I met you in Belfast last week, and you said something about what this is preparing you for. And I think that, you know, that once we choose to move from the studio as an artist, for example, and you start to put that word educator on the end of that, and then you bring it together into one word, we are making a political statement. And that's the point. That's a very important point to make here, because there's just sort of like talk about all art is political. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. I'm not going to get into that. But I know when you put education in it, it is. And you've no choice. Yeah. You've chosen the education. You've chosen to engage with other people. You've chosen to take ideas that you may have, particularly as an artist. And Paulina, you're taking ideas and a real passion inside you in regards to stigma and addressing stigma through your art. Now you're bringing it into education. So you're making a very deliberate step. And I think I've done the same. I made that step and said, I could work in a studio, I can paint pictures about the conflict, actually tried to, but it didn't do anything. And it certainly didn't satisfy my need to see change. And we see change in ourselves, which is important, but it's seeing change in others, which is beautiful. And that comes back to this idea of transformation, of art and education, these two forces coming together with the objective to transform, the world from starting with the individuals that we work with, and that starts with ourselves. But then looking at the communities that we engage with, be it in classrooms, or be it in the streets, be it in youth organizations, be it in hospitals, as you did, Paulina, be it using the media, social media, we're engaging, we're political.
Yeah, I think it's very important, especially now at this moment, because this is a very sensitive moment for Ukrainians and Russians, because we always have had connections and friendships and family members, and this war is really dividing us, and dividing also people in Russia, because and in Ukraine, and it's a huge moral catastrophe what is happening at this moment. So I think it is very important to stick together. And build more connections, and I'm hoping that I will be able to produce some a joint art with my Ukrainian friends who also here in the Netherlands, and I think it is the time now to join forces for this cause, and I'm really hoping that it's going to be possible. And I understand that that's why I fled, basically. I realized that if I would stay in Russia now, it wouldn't be possible for me to do something important.
It's highly likely if you stayed in Russia now, given the new law that was passed a few weeks ago, you'd be in prison, Paulina. You were using the term war in text, and that's a criminal act now, and that's how hard it is. But I think finding your voice outside isn't always easy, because you feel that, as I did, you feel guilty. I felt, I got out, and yeah, I mean, I think we just have to work that one through. But I genuinely say that as education workers, we've accepted a role, a responsibility, and we have a mandate from people like Pavel Ferreira and people like that to actually make change happen. We have that mandate, and it's a beautiful thing to have. And it gives us that sort of power to be able, and the agency to be able to make things and connect maybe into places that no one else, like you just said, Amjad, the interest of going to the right wing, going to these conservative places, not sitting in the safe spaces where people are all used to these conversations.
Yeah, I feel more comfortable here in Belfast, that it's not that safe, or it is a safe city. It's a very safe city, but I think it's like it's still sensitive. The situation is still sensitive here, and this sensitivity inspires me to make art, inspires me to do something, because there's no ready answers for my questions. There's no ready answers. I have to look for answers myself, and this is something that drives me to make art. It drives me to do something, and this combination between education and art, because I see that I can make a change here. It's not. Yeah, sometimes I feel that if you already know the answers, why you would do art, why you will make any change, and in a safe space, you already have the answers. You already have this one moral that everyone shares and everyone wants to do. And for me, diversity is more like different people with different morals, and how we can use this to build something new. And what I really want to achieve as an artistic educator is not is getting is not just getting learning someone and give someone only a tool. It's just getting something that I didn't expect, that I be surprised surprised with what the people around me, the art that people around me are making. It's not like I want to copy myself. It's not religion. It's just something that is something progressive. I just want to get something new out of people. I will share something, and they will develop it. They will make something that I didn't expect.
That's an interesting point.
So
maybe we can wrap up now. We've been going for nearly an hour, but that's an interesting point to bring it to a closure. Is it can look really hopeless in the world, and we can feel really despondent and go, well, what the hell can we do when we see the images coming out of Mariupol particularly? And I think what we have to believe in is that it's going to end. These wars will end. And I think you said something the other day, Amjad, which really interested me. You said in Northern Ireland, you're learning some of the skills that you may be able to bring back to Syria. Because there's a lot of artists working in Northern Ireland and doing amazing work in the field of conflict transformation. I think you've met some. But that idea that there's going to come a time when this will end. And I think, Paulina, what you're saying is like immediately starting to work across that divide that Putin has caused and his policies are causing. We immediately start to close that divide by staying in contact, by working, by making artistic work. And the idea that we don't know what the outcome would be of an artistic work is also an amazing thing to say. I've seen international people working in diplomacy in my life, working in different parts of the world, and they have like a program, they have a profile, they have a route. It's linear. They know where they want to get to. Throw an artist into the mix, and it takes them off in all different directions. And we begin to think different ways of connecting that we never thought of before. So I think our role, and certainly the many thousands of people and artists out there, and I watched some last night online directly coming from Ukraine, our role is going to be really significant going forward. It really is. And 2 years ago, I was at a thing at the United Nations in New York, and it was meant to be about how art contributes to crime against humanity, or not art, how education contributes. And at the meeting, I said, I think we should be looking at the other way, how education can prevent crimes against humanity. Yeah. And I was the only artist in the room and the only real educator in the room. And I said, we know the answer. And the answer is that open-ended, it's that encounter with the unknown, because just going down that line, if we know what's going to happen next, well, that's the hard skilled stuff. That's what's brought us to war after war after war. We need to have a different type of imagination and imagine our way out of this hatred, a way out of these divisions. You know, and I think artists are really crucial in this. And we should be at the center of peace building, actually. Not on the edges, entertaining and doing, but right at the center of it. So that would be my call to us. We have a lot of work to do. And Paulina, you know, I'm really delighted that you're going to be working with us next year, and I feel very honored that you're going to be joining us on our program next year, and we're going to learn so much from you. And Jad, you're going to be working on this program, won't you? we're going to grab you, and we will build this community, and we will build it from safe spaces. But we know we have to enter into those uncomfortable areas. Yeah, the unknown hits us in the face. That's what artists do. That's what we do. We work with the unknown. Yeah. Have you anything else to say before we wrap up, or any closing remarks?
I want to say something for, I don't know if anybody from Russia will see our conversation, but I want to say something. Maybe somebody will see it. At this moment, Russia is divided in 3 large groups. First group, it is people who vote for propaganda. Another group is opposition. And in the middle, there is a large group of people who don't know, who just don't know what is happening, why is it happening, and they see lots of news from everywhere, and they just say, okay, this is not my deal, it is politics, I cannot do anything. This is what many people think, that they, as individuals, cannot do anything. So I think it is very important to understand that actually every individual can do something. And I simply know it from art and activism of the way it was happening to me. It was happening to me by accident. I didn't plan to be an activist. I didn't know the tools. I didn't know how to use what I'm doing. It was just happening. So I thought I've seen like only I could change somebody's life. I could see it. It was happening, and I'm just an individual. I'm not a politician. I'm not a big institution or whatever. I'm an artist. So I think it is very important for this large group of people in Russia and also for the rest of the world to realize that every individual can make a change.
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe I'll comment on this, on what Paulina said. I totally agree that every individual can make change. I think we only need a public space to do this, a place that we meet together to can exchange ideas, learn from each other, and this space is being less and less in the society we are living in the Netherlands. So I think we have to claim this space as well, even if it's not very safe space. We as artists, we have to take risks and claim this space and claim the public space just to meet each other and try to make this change, because we can.
Thank you, Amjad. Thank you, Paulina. And here to that. So let's go and claim some space. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.